Hey everybody, my name is Kim Rolston. I work at the Staley School of Leadership in Communications, and as you may have quickly guessed, I am a Star Wars fan. And today is Star Wars Day. It's May the 4th be with you. I have brought two friends and former colleagues from the K-State Alumni Association into a conversation with me today to talk about and connect Star Wars franchise and leadership lessons.
Hi, I'm Tim Schrag. I'm a class of 2012 graduate of K-State, and I got the leadership minor right here on my shelf. I'm the editor of K-Stater magazine.
And I'm Ashley Pauls, Associate Director of Communications here at the Alumni Association, and also the Alumni Association's resident Star Wars fan. If you walk into my office, you can tell right away that I have two big passions, and that's K-State and Star Wars. So excited to talk about both today.
Ashley might actually be Riley County's resident Star Wars fan.
Yeah, I challenge anyone in the comments here to let us know if they think they might be a bigger Star Wars fan than Ashley. So
I'm willing to take you on.
All right, so what I thought we'd do today is I would ask you all a couple of questions. Tell me about some of your favorite parts of Star Wars, but as they relate to leadership and leadership practice here for our Staley School fans, our Star Wars fans. Let's tie it all together. So first question I've got is talking about leadership happening in groups, between groups and among groups. And so tell me about some of the communities in Star Wars that really work together as a unit rather than solo artists. Yes, we meant to include that pun.
Yes.
Ashley.
Yeah, so I feel like the obvious answer is the rebellion from the original trilogy, but I have to go with that because I feel like it's such an iconic example and also such a great example of leadership in a group setting. You have this rebellion composed of so many different people scattered across the galaxy that are rising up to oppose this evil empire that is taking over the galaxy, is oppressive, and is really trying to destroy these people's ways of life. And the rebellion would not work if it was just one or two people trying to do this on their own. It takes everybody working together and combining ideas and really believing in the cause and believing in each other. Because even if you had just Luke Skywalker or Princess Leia, they need all the other pilots, spies, everybody else that is a part of this movement. You have to have leaders that are respected like Leia and Luke to help guide this movement. So it wouldn't work if everybody wasn't bought in together and going along the same road about the cause they cared about.
I love that.
So for me, I think, think about the prequels, the Jedi Corps. It's a group of so many people across a lot of diverse cultures and races and ideas coming together to protect the galaxy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how as the franchise has moved along, they have really started to become more diverse and inclusive in their casting. I think that's really important and definitely an important part of leadership as well. Yeah. What are some of your favorite examples of folks using the Force in the franchise, in the movies, and maybe the most creative examples of using the Force?
I would say one of my favorite examples of using the Force in the entire franchise is Luke Skywalker at the very end of The Last Jedi, where he shows up, or so it appears, to fight his nephew in the film's villain, Kylo Ren. They have this big lightsaber duel, but only later do we learn that Luke isn't actually there. He is projecting himself through the Force. And what I love about this is that it's an act that eventually costs Luke his life. He becomes one with the Force because this expends so much energy, but he is using the Force completely for the light side, completely for good. It is an act of nonviolence. No one is hurt. There's no bloodshed, which is really what the Force is supposed to be about. And sometimes characters stray from that, as humans often do. But it's just an act of Luke taking ownership, leadership for some of the mistakes he made with his nephew trying to train him in the past. But yet he found a way to do this without actually harming anybody. So I think that's just a great summary of what the Force really is and is supposed to be in the Star Wars franchise.
He does a great job of setting an example as well for Kylo Ren as far as like servant leadership and what the Force should be used for. I love that.
Right. Yeah. It's not to get ahead for yourself, or to destroy things, but to help people.
100%.
So for me, it's probably The Force Awakens, where the Force doesn't actually get used at all. Finn is on the Star Killer base with Han Solo, and Han kind of asks Finn, "What's your plan to figure this out?" And he says, "We'll just use the Force." And Han looks at him and says, "Well, that's not how the Force works." And basically tells him, you know, you need to have a plan, and if we're going to get from point A to point B, we need to get this figured out and execute something.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not going to be that easy. It's more of a oh, Tim, do you remember adaptive or technical leadership challenge?
Yeah, exactly. It's probably more of an adaptive challenge, right?
Yes, absolutely. We talk about practicing leadership at the Staley School of Leadership, being engaging others, learning more, and taking risks. So who do you think is maybe one of the stronger examples, or maybe one of your favorite examples of practicing leadership very well in the Star Wars franchise? It'd be so hard to narrow it down to a single character. Tim, got anyone in mind?
Well, probably Princess Leia, General Organa, whatever you want to call her. She tells it like it is. She's very pragmatic. She sees things and she just goes out and does. She inspires people to follow her by doing, kind of setting the example, you know, having kind of a standard of excellence and expecting people to rise to it and letting them know when they don't measure up to that.
Yeah.
It's never like a meanness. There is kind of a sarcastic undertone to it, but she always, you know, inspires people and tries to set the good example of what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think of her relationship with Ray and how strong of like a developer relationship she has with her. Like,
Yeah, great
she sees
mentorship.
what Ray's capable of, and she knows, but she needs Ray to find it in herself and not just outright tell her.
Right. But I mean, you see that also with her and Han. You know, Han disappoints her in a lot of different areas across those movies. She never, you know, disparages him in a like put down kind of way beyond just kind of that playful joy. But, you know, when Poe also kind of disobeys her orders, she sets the record straight and she fixes the situation and she lets him know that that wasn't the correct course.
Absolutely. That's great. Ashley, who are you thinking about?
So I'm going to take us back to the prequel trilogy to Princess Leia's mother, Padme Amidala. And you meet her in the first movie. She's a young queen, but then we also get to see her become a senator. So I don't have time and won't bore you all with in-depth Star Wars politics, but basically after Padme's turn as queen was done, she volunteered to serve as a senator. So she kept giving of her own time and resources to serve the galaxy and provide leadership. I mean, attempts on her life were made. Her planet was held hostage. And she's regularly willing to put herself out there and take political risks to stand up for things that she knows is not right, when she's concerned about Palpatine just keeping ramping up the war effort in the prequels. And she's willing to stand for what she believes in, take risks, and really not compromise on what she knows is right. And even though she's young, she provides a great example for other senators and people in the galaxy to follow.
I love it. Speaking of strong female leads, we want to focus for just a few minutes on Princess Leia. We utilize across the K-State campus the Clifton Strengths Assessment. So if you were to think about Princess Leia as taking her Clifton Strengths Assessment, what would you say maybe some of her top 5 strengths would be? What would you guess?
Well, probably adaptability. I mean, she's had to change a lot of things over time. Just in her own life, you know, her planet gets blown up, all her family. She has to lead an organization through several different phases of change.
Love that. Ashley?
The ones I picked were command and belief. I feel like she has this sort of presence that inspires respect, confidence that motivate people to follow her, and belief. Like, she has this belief in the rebellion that they can beat the Empire, and she does not waver from that. I feel like those are both great leadership traits. Like if you have a cause that you are authentic about and believe in, other people are going to latch on to that too. Versus if you're trying to be a leader and you're not really, like, you feel ho-hum about what you're doing, that's not going to inspire other people to join your cause.
I also might put empathy on there when I think about how she works with like the communities of people and understanding, you know, what the needs of the people are and being able to sort of put herself in their shoes and understand their feelings and things they're going with, the loss that they're experiencing. And I was thinking too, maybe something that's along the lines of the execute strength, just getting things done, just doing what needs to be done as instead, you know, yes, we're going to come together and we're going to view the map and look at what our strategy should be. Maybe strategy's on her top 5 too. But I think execute, she's like, now we have to act, now we have to do something, you know, we don't just sit back and wait. So leadership is so risky. Who's making some really risky moves? And you know what, I even want us to think about maybe someone on the dark side. We haven't talked too much about our dark side, but they do have some strong examples of practicing leadership, whether it's for good or bad, they do. So is anyone maybe doing something risky that's a risky leadership move on the dark side?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Director Krennic from Rogue One is a great example there. You know, he's building the Death Star, and there are people above him kind of trying to take credit for his work and also trying to blame him for his failures simultaneously. And he's trying to get this project done, and he's also trying to grab some power while he's doing all those things.
Yeah. Love that. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, so I feel like I have to bring up Kylo Ren, who is such a fascinating, conflicted character in the sequel trilogy. In The Last Jedi, he does take a big risk and moment of leadership when Snoke is basically interrogating Rey in the throne room. And Kylo basically has to choose, am I going to go along with this? Or I'm going to save Rey. And so he chooses to save Rey, which is like an act of being a hero. But then he turns it around and decides like, well, I just want to be the powerful one now, instead of like taking this moment to turn from the dark side. He doubles down. So I think that's a good example too. Like, leadership is an ongoing process. Like, you can make a good decision, but that doesn't mean you can just kind of coast. You have to keep questioning yourself and evaluating it, because you can do the right thing, but then like take it in the wrong direction if you find yourself like giving into like negative traits of the dark side, like anger or pride, as the movies talk about, and that can take you in a bad direction. So Kylo Ren, great moment of leadership, followed by a really not so great moment of leadership. But he turns it around in the end, and he does come back and join the light side. So that's cool to see that we can always grow and change, and Star Wars constantly reminds us of that throughout the films.
You know, I think Darth Vader is kind of the same thing, right?
Yes.
Here's somebody who's had a very kind of interesting path. You know, they start as a hero, then they turn to a villain, probably the most interesting villain we've ever seen, but a very complicated and conflicted villain. And in the end, he throws away, you know, that villain side. He sacrifices himself to kill the Emperor and kind of kills himself in the process. But, you know, we have a very complicated human type person. And isn't that kind of what leadership is? It's not doing good, doing bad. It's making choices and kind of following your rationale, not your rationalization.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it makes me think too of, you know, how much work the students do around ethical dilemmas.
Yes.
You know, there's not always just like a dark side and a light side when it comes to making really tough choices. Sometimes there's some sacrifice that might have to be made. And that's what also it made me think of too. So. Well, that's all I have from the Staley School of Leadership today. Thank you so much, Tim and Ashley. May the 4th be with you.
Thank you. Go Cats.